The poses of the two of them at the moment are quite weird, and they definitely can't be shown on TV. As a top agent, Natasha Romanoff is naturally not the kind of girl who would blush. Seeing that the lock technique failed, she instantly locked on the vital point less than 50 centimeters away, and raised her hand to give Lu Chuang a deadly blow. But Lu Chuang's movement was faster. He directly opened Natasha Romanoff's two long legs, grabbed his ankle and threw it towards the wall. Natasha Romanoff didn't even have time to make a defensive move, and the whole body hit the wall, adjusted his posture in midair and looked at Lu Chuang with vigilance. This guy is no ordinary person. Natasha Romanoff could feel the powerful force coming from Lu Chuang's arm, and it was definitely not something she could resist. She immediately gave up the idea of close combat and raised her arms to aim at Lu Chuang in front of her. However, nothing happened. This familiar déjà vu. Natasha Romanoff watched Lu Chuang turn the high-tech bracelet with his index finger up, and fell silent for a while. Seeing Natasha Romanoff's reaction, Lu Chuang knew that the other party had recognized him, and said cheerfully, "Romanoff agent, what a coincidence, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." "Yeah, what a coincidence." Natasha Romanoff silently put away her fighting posture, pushed her red hair behind her ears, and transformed from a warrior into a charming woman in an instant. "I haven't introduced you last time, I am Natasha Romanoff, from S.H.I.E.L.D. Pausing for 2 seconds, realizing that Lu Chuang didn't take her routine, Natasha Romanoff continued calmly, "I didn't expect you to take off your mask. Is this your real face?" Lu Chuang touched his plain face, "Definitely." Natasha Romanoff stared at Lu Chuang's face, suddenly remembered something. She looked at the unconscious Ivan Wonk, then looked at Lu Chuang again, and said in surprise, "So you are the Asian who attacked Tony Stark that day. It seems that Justin Hammer also concealed your information." On the day of the Monaco race, Natasha Romanoff also came to the scene as Tony Stark's new assistant, and also witnessed the scene where Lu Chuang and Ivan Wonk attacked Tony Stark, so she remembered Lu Chuang's disguised face. It's just that Natasha Romanoff didn't expect that another attacker turned out to be Lu Chuang in front of him. According to information learned by Natasha Romanoff, Lu Chuang has appeared twice in SHIELD's report. And the most recent report, that is, the time when Natasha Romanoff met Lu Chuang had a very profound influence on Natasha Romanoff. Whether it is the combat ability or the super high camouflage skills behind it, it is definitely not an ordinary organization can be cultivated. However, Lu Chuang's whereabouts are too difficult to control, and his purpose is not very strong every time, so S.H.I.E.L.D. has no way to start investigating Lu Chuang, and until now there is still very little information about Lu Chuang. Even if Lu Chuang is now showing his so-called true face, Natasha Romanoff still remains skeptical. Maybe this face is also a disguise of the other party, just like the program where Lu Chuang pretended to be her before. "Romanov agent, you should understand a truth. Sometimes knowing too much is not necessarily a good thing." Lu Chuang looked at Natasha Romanoff, to be precise, the part below her head. Natasha Romanoff was keenly aware of this, not only didn't cover it but straightened up, making her curves more prominent. She showed a charming smile towards Lu Chuang. "Sorry, I don't have any malice." Lu Chuang nodded. "Well, I believe you have no malicious intentions." Natasha Romanoff was overjoyed, and her smile became more charming. "Then But I have." Lu Chuang looked at Natasha Romanoff with a stiff face, and showed a kind smile. "It's a pity that such a good-looking figure doesn't need to be used to carry bricks. Come, give me a hand, and let's transport this big guy out together." Following Lu Chuang's gaze, Natasha Romanoff found the steel armor in the laboratory and frowned, as this Ivan Vanke's new work. Although Natasha Romanoff does not know the process, it is not difficult to judge from the steel soldier that this pair of steel armor should also be made by Ivan Vanke, and it is likely to be a new weapon used to deal with Tony Stark. The previous Monaco incident is enough to show that Ivan Vanke has this technology level. "No, it's my work, it's just that I forgot how to use it," Lu Chuang firmly denied. "So you attacked Ivan Wonk?" "No, he fell by himself." Natasha Romanoff instantly understood that this guy had attacked Ivan Vanke and wanted to take away his steel armor. To be honest, Natasha Romanoff is a little confused about what Lu Chuang's standpoint is. He said that Lu Chuang is a good person, but the things he did have nothing to do with a good person. He said that Lu Chuang is a bad person, and he did not kill himself. and also defeated Ivan Vanki, the culprit. Natasha Romanoff thought for a while, and said, I can help you, but I have a condition. Let me restart Colonel Rhodes' steel armor, and now he is being controlled to fight Tony Stark. Natasha Romanoff knew that she didn't stop Lu Chuang from taking away the steel armor's ability, so instead of getting entangled with Lu Chuang, it's better to cooperate with his actions and rescue Tony Stark and Colonel Rhodes as soon as possible. Okay. You can do whatever you want. Lu Chuang took a step back and let Natasha Romanoff walk to the console, while he stood behind and observed. Natasha Romanoff tapped the keyboard quickly, and soon found the operation panel of the steel armor, but the computers in the laboratory were all equipped with software from Hammer Industries, so the computer screen displayed the need to enter the access code. Natasha Romanoff ignored it, and with her operation, easily cracked this fragile firewall. Proudly produced by Hammer Industries. In less than half a minute, Natasha Romanoff successfully restarted Colonel Rhodes' steel armor, and remotely contacted Tony Stark through the computer network, and Tony Stark's big head appeared on the screen instantly. Thanks, Agent Romanov. If you weren't an agent, I think you'd be a great assistant. Natasha Romanoff said helplessly, Mr. Stark, I think the person you thank should not be me, but another person. Oh. Who is it? Natasha Romanoff looked at Lu Chuang, and Lu Chuang was not shy, and moved his face to the screen. It's me, Morning Whip. Tony Stark had a toothache. How could it be this guy? Natasha Romanoff explained. Justin Hammer has said everything. The person who controls the Iron Soldiers is indeed Ivan Wonk, but before I came, this Mr. Sangbian had already defeated Ivan Wonk. Natasha Romanoff did not disclose that Ivan Wonk created the steel armor. After all, Lu Chuang wanted to take away the steel armor. She was not sure whether Lu Chuang would like to disclose the news. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's words, Tony Stark was surprised. What's the situation? Aren't they in the same group? Lu Chuang explained this personally. We just broke up. I like to eat sweet tofu now, but he likes to eat salty tofu now. For this kind of heresy, I directly kicked him out of our dry Tony Stark team. Tony Stark's eyes widened, so casually. Also, which bastard came up with the name of this damn team? Romanoff agent? Tony Stark wanted to confirm with Natasha Romanoff. What he said should be true. Natasha Romanoff glanced at the footprints behind Ivan Wonk, and it was indeed kicked out, the physical one. After being confirmed by Natasha Romanoff, there was no response from Tony Stark. After a while, I heard Tony Stark read slowly. Wade, the new project leader of Hammer Advanced Industries. The project content is mainly to develop a universal potion. A magical potion that can remove harmful toxins and cure diseases. There have been records in the past 2 successful cases, respectively controlling the condition of 2 critically ill patients. Wade is a pseudonym used by Lu Chuang, and it doesn't matter who the inspiration comes from. Apparently, Tony Stark has already investigated the relevant information about Lu Chuang in Hammer Industries, and even found out about the elixir. Lu Chuang was not surprised that Tony Stark could investigate so many things. After all, Tony Stark has the most advanced artificial intelligence JARVIS. It is not difficult to enter the database of June 13th and invade Hammer Industries. What's more, isn't the firewall of Hammer Industry just like a public toilet? Is it convenient for anyone to come in? After reading the information that was investigated, Tony Stark said with a strange expression, Are you sure you're not joking? Someone can really develop this panacea? Tony Stark finds it absurd, because the description of the panacea is too exaggerated. It removes all toxins that are harmful to the human body, and it will take effect immediately after drinking it. As far as he knows, no biotechnology company can develop such a drug. Lu Chuang nodded. You didn't see that with my wisdom and hard work. I have successfully developed this universal potion that can remove all toxins. Hearing this, Tony Stark couldn't believe it even more. This guy didn't look like a professional researcher no matter what. Suddenly, Tony Stark seemed to think of something, and stared at Lu Chuang through the screen. The symptoms of palladium poisoning in my body suddenly disappeared before. Could it be related to you? After the Monaco incident, Tony Stark checked his blood palladium content, and Tony Stark was surprised to find that all the toxicity in his blood disappeared strangely. Afterwards, Tony Stark checked his body many times, but unfortunately he still couldn't check the real reason why the symptoms of palladium poisoning disappeared. However, Tony Stark's body had completely recovered, and he didn't need to continue drinking chlorophyll to relieve the symptoms of palladium poisoning, which gave him enough time to create a new element to replace palladium as the energy supply for the steel armor. This incident can be said to have pulled Tony Stark back just before he was about to fall into the abyss. But now, the appearance of the elixir made Tony Stark wonder whether this matter had anything to do with Lu Chuang. Yes, at that time I used a special massage method to inject the panacea directly into your body to remove the palladium element in your body, Lu Chuang readily admitted. Are you massaging? It's obviously hitting my face with your fist. The corner of Tony Stark's mouth twitched. Isn't this kind of thing drinkable? Lu Chuang said solemnly. Believe me, the effect of massage is better. I developed the panacea. No one knows panacea better than me. So, I have to thank you. It's too vulgar to say thank you, give me a kowtow. Seeing that Lu Chuang admitted, Tony Stark couldn't figure out the real purpose of this guy for a while. If he was his enemy, Lu Chuang didn't want to put him to death like Ivan Wonk did, but instead saved his life. So much so that Tony Stark doesn't know what position he should use to treat Lu Chuang now. However, Tony Stark was still Tony Stark after all, and he soon came to his senses. He said in a frivolous tone, I'm very interested in your panacea. Why don't you leave Hammer Industries and work in my group? I can give you whatever conditions that annoying guy Justin Hammer offers you. I will give you double the salary directly. Even through the screen, Lu Chuang could feel Tony Stark's aura of a local tyrant blowing towards his face, and he almost had the words, not short of money, written on his face. I refused. It is impossible to work part-time. Now that Lu Chuang has collected all the materials, Stark Industry has nothing to attract him, so he has no interest in working as a wage earner with Tony Stark. Well, you missed an opportunity. Seeing Lu Chuang's refusal, Tony Stark didn't go any further. Persuading others is not his style. If this is the case, will you sell your elixir? Selling panaceas? Lu Chuang raised his brows. To be honest, he really didn't think about it. In line with being rich and not being a bastard, Lu Chuang asked, how much do you want to buy? I want to ask, how long is your prescription potion valid for? It's really hard for Lu Chuang to say, and he doesn't have time to test this question. At present, my panacea is still in the testing stage, and the longest validity period is uncertain, but it should last for about half a month. Tony Stark originally wanted to buy 100 elixir, but when he heard Lu Chuang's unreliable words, he immediately changed his mind and said, then give me 10 bottles of elixir first. I read the preliminary price estimate of Hammer Industries. Each bottle costs 200,000 United States dollars, right? Adding up, I will pay you 2 million United States dollars directly. Lu Chuang was slightly taken aback. He really didn't know about this. After all, he is just a wage earner who goes to work to catch fish, so he doesn't care about Hammer's plan. Let alone Hammer Industry has done a market research and temporarily priced the universal medicine at 200,000 United States dollars. Lu Chuang has no hesitation. Okay, you give me a contact method, and I will contact you when the time comes, and I will pay the money and deliver the goods. Soon, a number and address popped up on the screen. Tony Stark said, you can choose to send it directly to this place. After the two reached a deal, Tony Stark didn't say a few words, and hung up in a hurry. Although Colonel Rhodes' war machine had been released from control, there were still some remaining steel soldiers on his side that needed to be dealt with. There's nothing Natasha Romanoff can do about it. The attack commands of these iron soldiers have been locked. Unlike War Machine, which only needs to restart the system to restore the factory settings, Tony Stark can only slowly solve it by himself. After memorizing the number and address, Lu Chuang urged Natasha Romanoff, don't look, hurry up and help. Natasha Romanoff touched her ears subconsciously, and found that the communicator had long since disappeared, and sighed helplessly. Fine. Hammer Industrial Zone, Munitions Factory. With the help of Natasha Romanoff, Lu Chuang took the entire steel armor away, secretly transported it to the location of the truck with a cart, and then stuffed the steel armor into the compartment of the truck. Fortunately, the size of the steel armor is not as huge as the Iron Overlord armor. At most it is only a circle larger than Tony Stark's steel armor, otherwise Lu Chuang would have a headache how to take it away. Natasha Romanoff noticed that the car was full of materials, but she didn't say anything. This kind of thing is not up to them shield. Compared with this, she is more concerned about another thing now. Natasha Romanoff turned to look at Lu Chuang. Mr. Wade, may I ask, do you still have that panacea? She heard the complete conversation between Lu Chuang and Tony Stark just now, so she naturally knew the existence of the panacea. Lu Chuang glanced at Natasha Romanoff, somewhat understanding what she meant. You want to buy it too? It's not me, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha smiled and said. If according to what you said, the panacea can remove all toxins in the body, maybe we can also try to cooperate. Working with S.H.I.E.L.D. Hearing this sentence, Lu Chuang lost interest in an instant, and now he doesn't want to have any contact with S.H.I.E.L.D., so he said perfunctorily, let's talk about this kind of thing later, definitely next time. After speaking, Lu Chuang sat in the driver's seat of the truck, and waved to Natasha Romanoff through the window. Romanov agent, Ivan Vanki will leave it to you, that's all, goodbye. Looking at the shadow of the truck leaving, Natasha Romanoff shook her head slightly, turned around and returned to Ivan Vanki's laboratory. Without equipment, she needed other communication equipment to contact S.H.I.E.L.D. Where did you bring these things? Lorna stood in the car curry, looking at the batch of materials brought back by Lu Chuang, as well as the pair of wild steel armor, with a slightly dull expression. At the moment Lu Chuang has returned to his original appearance, and said cheerfully, I borrowed it from a kind person. It doesn't cost any money, and it just saved me a lot of money. Lorna looked in disbelief. How could a kind person borrow such a thing? On the other hand, little Peter touched the steel armor excitedly, and kept saying, cool, it's so cool. Different from the broken and crude Mark I steel armor, the steel armor in front of me is the latest work created by Ivan Vanki. It is a complete version of the super battlesuit. Does this steel armor have a name? Little Peter asked excitedly. Definitely, it's called the whip armor. Lu Chuang claimed to be Sangbian, but now this pair of steel armor belongs to him. There is nothing wrong with calling it Sangbian armor. Morning whip armor, I like the name. Peter's eyes lit up, and he asked expectantly, can I go in and have a seat? Not yet. Lu Chuang grabbed Peter, who was about to climb on top of the whip armor, and said to Lorna, do me a favor, this steel armor contains a remote-controlled bomb, and you need to take it off with your ability. Why would you bring such a dangerous thing into your home? Lorna complained, but a dazzling green light appeared on both hands, and the seemingly thick morning whip armor was dismantled instantly, and countless parts were floating in midair. The scene was extremely cool. Soon, a remote control bomb emerged from the whip armor, wrapped in green light and sent to the table, and then all the parts returned to their original positions one by one, and the whip armor returned to its original appearance in less than 5 seconds. With such proficient techniques, it is obvious that Lorna did not do less similar things during the absence of Lu Chuang. As little Peter's assistant, her daily job is to disassemble or assemble steel armor. I don't know how many times it has been dismantled by her. Seeing this scene, Lu Chuang sighed secretly that he was right to keep Lorna. Where can I find such a good tool? Lu Chuang patted Lorna on the shoulder. I will give you double salary starting tomorrow, work hard, the company will not treat you badly. Upon hearing the salary increase, Lorna was overjoyed at first, but quickly reacted. Isn't it true that I have a salary? Isn't 00 still 0? Lorna was so angry that her chest was about to explode. Oh no, she shouldn't have such a thing. Although Lorna's body proportions are good, and she still has everything with long legs, but the only shortcoming is that she is a little brother. Lu Chuang didn't notice Lorna's expression. He was a super high school spy, and he disarmed the remote-controlled bomb in 2 or 3 clicks, avoiding the risk of the remote-controlled bomb's sudden explosion. The problem of the technical personnel has been solved, the problem of the super battlesuit design drawings has also been solved, and even the materials for making the super battlesuit are ready. Lu Chuang scanned the entire garage, quite satisfied in his heart, and said in high spirits, everything is ready, I only owe Dongfeng, and now I just need to make a brand new super battlesuit. Shoot Toe Stark under your feet. Stomp Tony Stark underfoot. Little Peter cheered cooperatively. After shouting, the two looked at Lorna at the same time. Lorna. Seeing Lorna's appearance of preferring death to surrender, Lu Chuang curled his lips in boredom, and then inserted the USB flash drive into the computer. Little Peter. This is the design drawing of the morning whip armor. Let's read it together with the Iron King armor. Hearing this, Little Peter immediately ran to the computer, staring at the screen. My God, this blueprint is even more perfect than the blueprint of the Iron King's armor. Definitely, the author of this blueprint is a physics genius not weaker than Tony Stark. Lu Chuang said definitely. To put it bluntly, the Iron King armor is a low-end version of Mark I. All the technology is copied from Mark I. It is not as good as the original Mark I. The Morning Whip armor is made by Ivan Vanke himself. The steel armor that comes out is not weaker than Tony Stark's Mark series steel armor. How could the Iron Overlord armor, which is a plagiarized product, be comparable to Ivan Vanke's whip armor? The little Peter looked at the design drawings of the Morning Whip armor, and then opened the design drawings of the Iron King armor. He was a little confused. But, now there are two design drawings. Which direction should I go to make the super battlesuit? Children do multiple choice questions. Lu Chuang stretched out his right hand and slowly clenched his fist in midair. As an adult, I want it all. According to the unlocking conditions of a super high school inventor, Lu Chuang not only needs to make a high-tech battlesuit by himself, but also needs to use the high-tech battlesuit to defeat Tony Stark's steel battlesuit. Both the Iron King armor and the whip armor have their advantages and disadvantages, and Lu Chuang's idea is to combine the advantages of the two pairs of steel armor to create a new and more powerful super battlesuit. For Lu Chuang, the combat effectiveness of the super battlesuit is naturally as strong as possible, so that it is possible to defeat Tony Stark. Definitely, the idea still had to be realized by little Peter. Glancing at the energetic little Peter, Lu Chuang nodded in satisfaction. Now all he has to do is to wait patiently, and when little Peter successfully makes a super battlesuit, he can put it on himself directly. Justin Hammer, chairman of Hammer Advanced Industries, has been arrested by the New York Police Department on multiple counts related to the attack on Stark Expo and will be tried in public court 1 month later. Today, Tony Stark and Colonel Roddy were publicly honored in Washington, and Senator Stern awarded the medal. 2 days passed in a blink of an eye. Lu Chuang stood in the lobby watching the news on the TV, holding 2 huge amounts of dumbbells in his hands. Because he was wearing short sleeves, Lu Chuang's arms were exposed. Although there were no exaggerated large muscle groups, the muscle lines were very smooth, and it could be seen that Lu Chuang's figure was very good. Putting the dumbbells on the ground, Lu Chuang stretched out his arms, feeling the inexhaustible strength and physical strength all over his body, and then opened the character panel of the game system. Player: Lu Chuang. Sex: male. Age: 18 years old. Talent: super high school level stuntman, super high school level sharpshooter, super high school level priest, super high school level thief, super high school level spy. Before he knew it, Lu Chuang already possessed different super high school level talents. With the continuous unlocking of new super high school level talents, Lu Chuang can feel that his body is gradually changing. For example, after Lu Chuang just unlocked super high school level thief, his finger dexterity improved a lot, so that he could easily steal Natasha Romanoff's equipment without being discovered by the other party. However, this is not what Lu Chuang cares more about. When Lu Chuang unlocked super high school level spy, he was surprised to find that his finger dexterity started to improve again. Among other things, Lu Chuang's typing speed has soared to tens of thousands of words an hour. If he rewrites the novel now, the speed of this code word can definitely maintain 20 shifts a day, and there is no need to worry about being sent a blade by the reader. It's just that compared with super high school level thief, super high school level spy does not improve finger dexterity so much, and the enhancement of super high school level spy is more inclined to improve overall physical fitness. It is no exaggeration to say that Lu Chuang's physical fitness is not weaker than those special soldiers who have received long-term training, and this is without Lu Chuang turning on bullet time. If the bullet time is turned on, Lu Chuang is confident that he can draw with the United States with his buttocks, that is, the Captain America whose body is at the peak of human beings. As for defeating or crushing Captain America, Lu Chuang dare not boast about it. After all, the legend of the 50-50 team leader has been spread for a long time. Even Thanos can force 50-50. This ability is not comparable to Lu Chuang now. Obviously, the changes in Lu Chuang's body today are the benefits of those super high school level talents. A super high school level talent not only possesses the top technical ability, but also has the most suitable physical ability for this talent, just like the technical flow and physical flow of basketball. If the two abilities reach the extreme at the same time, then there is no doubt that this person absolutely the pinnacle of existence in the basketball world. However, The most frightening thing is that this enhancement effect can be superimposed. This means that as long as Lu Chuang unlocks new super high school level talents, his physical fitness can continue to improve. Perhaps the increase of some super high school level talents is not obvious, but Lu Chuang believes that as long as he unlocks enough super high school level talents, his physical fitness will definitely reach an unprecedented height by then. It's a pity that triggering the achievement task still depends on the face, and it's not something he can do if he wants to. After the strength test was over, Lu Chuang lay back on the sofa, drinking the happy fat house water happily. At this time, the TV screen cut to the screen of the public award. Tony Stark and his good friend Rhodes were accepting the award from Senator Stern. Senator Stern, who had been ridiculed by Tony Stark, looked as if he was eating shit. Obviously he did not volunteer to be this honoree. Looking at Tony Stark on the TV screen, Lu Chuang suddenly remembered that there was still one thing he hadn't done. 10,880 Malibu Beach, CA. In the lab, Wani Stark is transforming the war machine. After the Stark Expo, his friend Colonel Rhodes has returned the war machine. Due to the conflict between Tony Stark and the Ministry of Defense, Colonel Rhodes tried to coordinate the two parties. For the sake of friends, Tony Stark finally agreed to continue leasing the war machine armor to the military. Definitely, this pair of steel armor can only be used by Colonel Rhodes. It's to stop playing Tony Stark's iron armor idea. Once the deal was struck, Tony Stark set about reworking the war machine. The voice of Pepper Potts came from the screen in front of him. Tony, the government has approved the construction of the Stark building. When are you going to announce the cooperation plan between Stark Industries and New York City? I don't need this kind of thing. Isn't your handover work unfinished? So now you are still the CEO of Stark Industries, and this press conference is definitely done by you, said Tony Stark perfunctorily. What? It's such a happy decision. I still have things to do. Goodbye. After Tony finished speaking, he hung up the phone. As a workaholic, he never liked being interrupted at work. At this moment, JARVIS, electronic synthesis sound suddenly sounded. Sir, there is an undisclosed number calling. Do you need to connect? Tony Stark frowned. His number is private, and not many people should know this number. Come on. As soon as the phone was connected, I heard Lu Chuang's voice. Is this Teacher Tony? Hearing this familiar tune, Tony Stark instantly recognized Lu Chuang's identity. Why are you this guy? Lu Chuang said. Didn't you want to buy the panacea? I brought it here, right at your door. I'm not free today, come back another day. Tony Stark said without hesitation. He didn't want to be disturbed by anything now, let alone Lu Chuang, an annoying guy. Anyway, the other party wasn't Potts, and Tony Stark didn't even bother to find an excuse, so he just opened his mouth and wanted to drive him away. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while, then hung up. Tony Stark ignored it, but JARVIS had something to say. JARVIS, I don't want anyone to disturb me today, not even if the president is here. Mute. Tony Stark shouted impatiently, and JARVIS fell silent for an instant. Without the interruption of JARVIS, I can finally live with Kid King. Boom. Tony Stark was about to continue transforming the war machine when he heard a knock on the door behind him. Under Tony Stark's dull gaze, Lu Chuang pushed open the door of the laboratory, walked into the laboratory swaggeringly, and asked Tony Stark. Well, I just want to ask, when is the next day? Tony Stark. How the hell did you get in here? Seeing Lu Chuang standing in front of him, Tony Stark couldn't help shouting. At the moment Lu Chuang has already used the disguise technique. He looks ordinary, with a backpack on his back. He drank the happy fat house water in his hand and said, Look at your question, you definitely came in through the gate. Tony Stark frowned tightly, very puzzled in his heart. You know, his house is fully supervised by JARVIS. Even if you know the password of the door, you can't get in without the access authority, especially for a stranger like Lu Chuang whose background is unknown. JARVIS is absolutely impossible to let Lu Chuang enter the house. Lu Chuang directly destroyed the door and forced his way in. Tony Stark looked at the open door of the laboratory. The lock didn't show any signs of damage. Obviously the other party didn't force their way in. JARVIS, Tony Stark called JARVIS. The artificial intelligence JARVIS came back online and explained, "Sir, this unregistered visitor has cracked the password, and I cannot use the permission modification program in the background for unknown reasons." At the moment Lu Chuang entered the door, JARVIS originally wanted to remind Tony Stark, but Tony Stark made it shut down the microphone directly, so that Tony Stark didn't even know that Lu Chuang had entered the room. Hearing words, Tony Stark's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Even JARVIS can't modify it in the background, so it's possible that Lu Chuang and him are the only ones who have entered the technology. Lu Chuang didn't know Tony Stark thought so much. Listening to the magnetic voice of JARVIS, Lu Chuang couldn't help asking curiously, "JARVIS, are you male?" "I have no gender, this voice is my initial setting," JARVIS replied. Lu Chuang's eyes lit up. "That's good, give me the whole Uchiha's voice." JARVIS. "Sorry, you don't have this permission." "What a pity." Lu Chuang shook his head. To be honest, he really wants to see if JARVIS's voice is changed to a female, and when JARVIS becomes Vision in the future, will Vision change gender according to the voice, for example, become a sexy Yuji robot? It's exciting to think about it. Definitely, it is also possible to become a straight steel man full of royal sister voice. Seeing that Lu Chuang ignored him, Tony Stark said annoyedly, "Hey, this is my home, you came in without my permission, this is trespassing." Lu Chuang broke into his home, but Tony Stark didn't choose to do it. After so many contacts, he could feel that Lu Chuang didn't intend to hurt him. Definitely, the most important point is that he is not wearing steel armor now, and his combat effectiveness may not be as good as that of Ivan Vanki, the Russian Ross. If he really does it, he will definitely suffer. Don't pay attention to this little detail. Lu Chuang took out his backpack, opened the zipper and said, "Here is the panacea you want, 10 bottles in total." Tony Stark glanced inside the backpack that Lu Chuang had brought. "This is the panacea you mentioned." Tony Stark took out a bottle of mineral water from his backpack, which contained translucent water, and asked with some doubts, "Why do I feel that this is an ordinary bottle of water?" Lu Chuang affirmed, "This is the panacea, don't be fooled by its appearance, if you don't believe me, you can try it." "You don't need to tell me, I will do it too." Tony Stark placed the mineral water bottle on a sophisticated instrument, and then a flash of red light quickly scanned the bottle of mineral water, only listening to the report of JARVIS. After testing, it is basically consistent with the mineral water on the market, and no other ingredients have been detected. "Isn't this still mineral water?" The corners of Tony Stark's mouth twitched. Seeing that JARVIS did not detect any special ingredients, he simply picked up a bottle of mineral water and drank it. It may be because he was just thirsty, and Tony Stark quickly drank the bottle of mineral water. At this moment, Tony Stark suddenly felt that his body was a lot lighter. His body, which was slightly exhausted from high-intensity work, seemed to be rejuvenated at this moment, full of energy. Tony Stark rolled his eyes. "Oh." Lu Chuang proudly said, "How is it, do you feel it?" After all, Tony Stark is also a well-informed person, so he quickly regained his composure. "Well, I admit that this panacea does have some effect, besides the ones in your backpack. How much do you have in stock?" "As long as there is enough mana, the inventory is definitely as much as you want." Lu Chuang pretended to think about it. "There are probably a few hundred bottles left." "Okay. Give me another 100 bottles, Tony Stark said without hesitation. After personally experiencing the effects of the universal potion, he is so smart that he naturally knows the importance of this kind of universal potion. Among other things, the effect of eliminating fatigue alone is worth buying in large quantities. To Tony Stark, this amount of money is nothing. Lu Chuang looked at Tony Stark, who was nearly 100 million people, and said cheerfully, "It's easy to say, it may take some time to prepare 100 bottles of universal medicine. By the way, I have different flavors of universal medicine here. Are you interested?" "Taste?" Tony Stark was stunned. "The elixir still has a taste, is it so fancy?" After reaching a new agreement with Tony Stark, Lu Chuang threw the remaining 9 bottles of panacea together with the backpack to Tony Stark, and Tony Stark ordered JARVIS to deposit the money into the account provided by Lu Chuang. In addition to the $2 million United States dollars for this transaction, there is also a deposit of 100 bottles of elixir, a total of 7 million United States dollars. After the transaction was over, Lu Chuang glanced at the war machine armor in front of him, with an eager expression on his face. No way, since the achievement task of the super high school inventor was triggered, Lu Chuang has now developed the habit of collecting steel armor. Seeing such a pair of powerful steel armor in front of him, especially if it was built by Tony Stark himself, Lu Chuang instinctively made up his mind. However, Lu Chuang thought that this was Tony Stark's territory, so he finally dismissed the idea in his mind. Lu Chuang turned his head with some regret. Before leaving, he said to Tony Stark, "Teacher Tony, are you interested in joining my explosive Tony Stark team? It's a pity that your talent can't come to help me." Tony Stark's face is black. "You mean me to F*K myself?" Not surprisingly, Tony Stark rejected Lu Chuang's invitation, and told Lu Chuang to quickly disband this damn team. Dissolution is definitely not possible. Lu Chuang ignored Tony Stark's advice and left the luxurious villa. A few minutes later, Lu Chuang found his motorcycle on the side of the road. After walking a few steps, Lu Chuang saw a middle-aged man standing beside his motorcycle. Seeing Lu Chuang's arrival, the middle-aged man smiled and said, "Mr. Wade, this should be the third time we have met." When Lu Chuang saw that the other party turned out to be Phil Coulson, he was immediately delighted. "It's you, Agent Phil Coulson, long time no see, your hairline seems to be getting higher." Speaking of this, Phil Coulson can't help feeling a little resentful. Lu Chuang is to blame for his rising hairline. Every time Lu Chuang knocks him out, there are a lot of things to deal with when he wakes up. Phil Coulson's workload has increased several times, so that recently his hair has started to fall out again. Every day Phil Coulson gets up to watch when it comes to the pillow, there is a burst of sorrow. "So, you have something to do with me?" Lu Chuang asked. He knew that Phil Coulson couldn't be here by chance. It is estimated that S.H.I.E.L.D. had been secretly monitoring this area, and he was exposed to their sight. Phil Coulson coughed lightly. The agent's good qualities made him put a gentle smile on his face again. "Mr. Wade, this time I bring our gratitude and sincerity. Some time ago, you stopped Ivan Vanki's conspiracy, saved the lives and property of many people, and arrested Ivan Vanki, so that criminals will be punished according to the law. Thank you very much for your help." "Ivan Wonk returned to the Monaco prison?" Lu Chuang asked curiously. "You don't have to worry about this, we have already sent the criminal to where he should go." Phil Coulson didn't elaborate, but Lu Chuang also guessed it. S.H.I.E.L.D. will definitely not let a high-tech talent like Ivan Vanki leave America. There are only two endings waiting for Ivan Vanki, either to be incorporated into S.H.I.E.L.D., or to be imprisoned in a special prison. Anyway, it has nothing to do with Lu Chuang. What do you mean sincerity? Phil Coulson smiled. "I heard there's a deal between you and Tony Stark, right?" Hearing what Phil Coulson said, Lu Chuang showed vigilance. "You S.H.I.E.L.D. should not be responsible for tax collection." "You misunderstood. I am interested in what you traded, the universal potion that can remove all toxins," explains Phil Coulson. Lu Chuang understood that Phil Coulson obviously knew about the elixir from Natasha Romanoff, and came here for the elixir. Before Lu Chuang could speak, Phil Coulson suddenly said, "Our S.H.I.E.L.D. intends to purchase a batch of panacea, about 200 bottles. 200 bottles of universal medicine, that is, 40 million USD. Such a huge amount made Lu Chuang swallow the words that were on the verge of refusing. "You sure?" "Yes." Phil Coulson nodded. "As long as our test is correct, we can conduct transactions immediately. If possible, we can also try long-term cooperation. Definitely, the transaction amount does not need to be reviewed by the tax bureau." Phil Coulson added at the end, "No matter how strong the tax bureau is, can they still check their S.H.I.E.L.D. accounts?" It has to be said that Lu Chuang was really moved when he heard these words. Although Tony Stark directly bought 100 bottles of universal potion, no matter what, Tony Stark was alone, and it would take at least 3 months to consume one bottle every day. But S.H.I.E.L.D. is different. With so many agents up and down, the demand must far exceed Tony Stark. It is definitely a good choice as a partner. However, there are downsides to working with S.H.I.E.L.D. As we all know, the full name of S.H.I.E.L.D. is Guokai Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency in Hydra. As early as I don't know how many years ago, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by HYDRA's spies into a sieve, down to SHIELD's sweeping ant, up to the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a member of the World Security Council, all of them are Hydra people. In the end, it was unclear whether the Hydra spies were infiltrated in S.H.I.E.L.D., or the S.H.I.E.L.D. spies were infiltrated in the Snake and S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau. Lu Chuang's cooperation with S.H.I.E.L.D. is basically equivalent to cooperation with Hydra. But rich don't earn bastards. It doesn't matter if he is S.H.I.E.L.D. or Snake and S.H.I.E.L.D., the boss is the one who pays. After a few seconds of thinking, Lu Chuang said decisively, cooperation is fine, but you want a little too much, and my inventory may not be enough, so I need a little time to prepare, and you know, Tony Stark is more than you earlier, as a businessman with integrity, I had to complete his order before I could make your order. No problem. Phil Coulson asked. May I ask how much Tony Stark ordered? Lu Chuang didn't think it was an important issue, and said honestly, not much, just 100 bottles. Hearing this, Phil Coulson's eyes changed imperceptibly. Some time ago, they actually found out that Tony Stark's blood contained an unprecedented palladium radioactive isotope, which reacted with some compounds and formed chemical bonds. His circulatory system completely collapsed. Simply put, it is an incurable disease, at least until Tony Stark develops new elements. There is no way to cure Tony Stark's palladium poisoning. However, Tony Stark recovered, and all the palladium in his body suddenly disappeared. They were also puzzled by this question, but after Natasha Romanoff came back to report a few days ago, they learned that the reason for Tony Stark's recovery turned out to be the 10 universal potions. And now Tony Stark's order can basically prove the authenticity of this panacea. After all, with Tony Stark's intelligence, it's basically impossible to deceive him. At this time, Lu Chuang took out an unopened bottle of mineral water from the motorcycle, skillfully injected mana into it, and handed it to Phil Coulson. Phil Coulson looked at the mineral water bottle in his hand. Mr. Wade, I'm not thirsty. I didn't say you were thirsty. This is the panacea. Wani Stark said it was good after drinking it. Phil Coulson. Tony Stark must have been scammed. S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Tricurve Wing Building. Phil Coulson walked into the director's office with a document and found Nick Fury sitting at his desk, staring at the map on the wall silently, as if thinking about some important issue. In this regard, Phil Coulson said that he has long been used to it, and he can often see such pictures. If you want to say that S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury have been in contact with the agent for the longest time, he can definitely be at the top. Before Nick Fury became S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Phil Coulson knew Nick Fury, and then Nick Fury became S.H.I.E.L.D. director. He promoted him to become a high-level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was also from the moment Nick Fury became director, Phil Coulson often saw Nick Fury looking at this map posted on the wall of the office. Phil Coulson came to the desk in the office, when Nick Fury also noticed Phil Coulson's arrival, and turned his gaze from the map to Phil Coulson. Sir, here are the relevant data and test results of the panacea. Nick Fury took the file from Phil Coulson and looked down at it. While Nick Fury was viewing the report, Phil Coulson continued. According to the observation records of patient number 1, after taking a certain amount of panacea, the toxins in the patient's body were significantly reduced, but this process was relatively slow. However, after the patient took the remaining panacea, all the toxins in the body quickly disappeared, and the damage in the body began to slowly repair. So far, no adverse reactions have been found, and further observation is needed. Nick Fury said in a deep voice, is there any possibility of duplicating this panacea? In fact, it was Nick Fury who arranged the trade between Phil Coulson and Lu Chuang. After learning that Lu Chuang possessed a miraculous elixir, Nick Fury began to pay attention to this matter, and immediately ordered his right-hand man Phil Coulson to try to contact Lu Chuang, and it would be best to get a sample of that elixir. Phil Coulson shook his head. About this question. It may sound a bit unbelievable, but according to the test results, the composition of that bottle of elixir is basically the same as that of a bottle of mineral water. Hearing these words, Nick Fury couldn't help raising his head. Are you sure? This is the final result of our researchers after many tests, and the possibility of error is very low. Phil Coulson said, even if we replicated the ingredients, it is very likely that we will only get a bottle of ordinary mineral water in the end, but it may be difficult to replicate the same effect. If he hadn't seen the effect of the panacea with his own eyes, Phil Coulson would have suspected that Lu Chuang had fooled himself and sold himself a bottle of ordinary mineral water as the panacea. Nick Fury narrowed his one eye slightly. His years of working as an agent made him keenly aware of the weirdness, and then he asked, Phil Coulson, have you come into contact with that Asian man? Did you find anything? Phil Coulson said, this person is very mysterious and very skilled. Even the Romanov agent is not an opponent. Although the other party has exposed a lot of information about himself, we have also verified this information later, and it is all unverifiable. False information, including that face. According to our system matching, the place where the Asian face first appeared was Monaco. Considering the other party's previous record of pretending to be a Romanov agent, I think the other party's face is probably also a disguise. Nick Fury stretched out his fingers and tapped the table. This was his habitual thinking action. After a long time, he said, do you think this person poses a threat? Phil Coulson frowned and thought. At present, his main goal seems to be for the steel armor. The reason is unknown, but from the analysis of his behavior, I don't think he has. Well, it should be said that he doesn't have much malice. Phil Coulson thought of Lu Chuang's bad taste, but he really couldn't say that the other party was completely harmless. After pondering for a moment, Nick Fury suddenly stopped his finger movements, and said, since this is the case, you will be in charge of contacting him in the future, and tell him that S.H.I.E.L.D. is willing to trade with him and order 200 bottles of elixir, but fees need to be renegotiated. It is no exaggeration to say that the panacea can save a person's life at a critical moment, especially for agents who complete dangerous tasks. This panacea is undoubtedly their life. For this panacea, Nick Fury will not let go. Nick Fury said, tell that person that the price of a bottle of 200,000 United States dollars is too expensive, and we can't afford such a large amount of money. If he wants to cooperate for a long time, he must show a little sincerity. You are still in charge of this aspect. Negotiate. Try to lower the price to a suitable range. Remember, this is a secret mission and cannot be disclosed to anyone. Clear. Phil Coulson sighed inwardly. He knew he was busy again. The two chatted a few more words, and Phil Coulson, who took over the new task, quickly left the office. Nick Fury did not relax, but immediately drew up a budget allocation agreement for S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a self-produced department. All the funds of S.H.I.E.L.D. are actually allocated through the World Security Council. The World Security Council has the right to supervise S.H.I.E.L.D. and must also abide by the corresponding obligations. Every time there is a new project, Nick Fury has to draft an agreement and submit it to the World Security Council. Therefore, Nick Fury is very proficient in this work, and he drew up the budget appropriation agreement in a few clicks. As for the amount, naturally, the more you write, the better. It is not easy to allocate funds every time. Nick Fury will not let go of such a good opportunity. Definitely, Nick Fury didn't want these funds into his own pocket. Just recently he was short of funds to build a new safe house. As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., he is always facing various dangers. Nick Fury's persecution paranoia can be said to be terminally ill. He always feels that someone is going to hurt him, and he hardly trusts anyone. Doubt, almost even doubt yourself. So Nick Fury built himself some safe houses, just in case. Nick Fury looked at the map on the wall again, his expression lost in thought. Where should the safe house be built this time? The area of this America map seems to be almost full. Do you want to start developing to the whole world? The breeze was blowing over the Queen's block, and the light that was not too harsh shone into the house through the glass windows. Lu Chuang, Xiao, was sitting on the sofa like paralyzed, feeling the warm sunshine, and said lazily to the phone, discount? Shall I break your leg? Mr. Wade, I hope that both of us can reach a long-term cooperation. If we follow the original price, we really can't afford so much money, and our cooperation may not be able to continue. On the other end of the line was Phil Coulson's voice. Don't be ridiculous, your majestic S.H.I.E.L.D. is still short of money? Could it be that your S.H.I.E.L.D.'s funds have been corrupted by your director? Mr. Wade, our chief is not your wife's. Phil Coulson defended his director, then continued. It's just that the price of the panacea is too expensive. Our current liquidity is not enough to buy in large quantities. If the price can be lowered a little, I think we will be your most stable customers. Well, what you said seems to make a little sense. Hearing that Lu Chuang seemed to be shaking, Phil Coulson immediately tried harder to persuade Lu Chuang. To put it simply, it's crying about being poor to Lu Chuang in the 13th film. For example, their S.H.I.E.L.D. is so poor that the agents can't afford to eat, and even the boss Nick Fury has to go out to shoot naked loans to pay back the money. although Phil Coulson's original words are not so, that's roughly what it means anyway. That is a tearjerker, touching heart. Even Lu Chuang was a little touched when he heard it, and couldn't help sighing in his heart. In this world, there are people more shameless than Wade. For Phil Coulson's words, Lu Chuang didn't believe even a punctuation mark, but he didn't open his mouth to expose it, just listening to Phil Coulson's long speech like this. When Phil Coulson was talking dry, Lu Chuang sighed and said, "Well, you have successfully convinced me, since everyone is so familiar, I will call you 10% off." Phil Coulson. I've said so much, and the result is worth such a small discount? What's even more exaggerated is that there are so many decimal places in the back, which makes me feel lonely. Thinking of Nick Fury's order, Phil Coulson felt ruthless in his heart, resisting the dryness of his throat, and was about to blurt out a 1,000,000-word article. "Mr. Wade." Okay, I'm afraid of you." Lu Chuang interrupted him, pretending to be helpless, and said, "Then I'll give you a 10% discount." Phil Coulson was a little speechless. "It's not much cheaper, Mr. Wade. You have to know that our plan is a long-term cooperation, and we may have more cooperation opportunities in the future. The price is still too high. How about a 50% discount?" "You want to fart. The lowest discount is 8.999%. Mr. Wade, if there is no price reduction like you, why don't you and I take a step back and get 30% off? 20% off. This is already the lowest price. If it is lower, I will lose money." Phil Coulson seems not satisfied. "Actually, I think we can discuss it again." Lu Chuang sneered. "Okay, I'll discuss it with you in person, but remember to make an appointment with your orthopedic doctor in advance." There was silence on the other end of the phone, and it was unclear whether Phil Coulson was thinking or was asking his immediate superior. After a while, Phil Coulson finally said, "We agreed. Let's use the price you said, which is converted into 160,000 United States dollars per bottle of Universal Potion. According to our previous agreement, we plan to order 200 bottles of Universal Potion Pharmacy, a total of 32 million United States dollars. You guys really made a lot of money this time. I lost money at this price, and it made me want to cry." Lu Chuang's tone was slightly regretful. Saved 8 million USD for S.H.I.E.L.D. at once. Phil Coulson was also very satisfied, and said with a smile, "Happy cooperation, Mr. Wade. If you still have something similar to that kind of panacea, you can contact me at any time. Trust us to give you the price. We'll definitely not let you down. If there is, I will contact you." After saying a few words, Lu Chuang hung up the phone and finally grinned uncontrollably. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. offered a 20% discount, for Lu Chuang, there are only advantages and no disadvantages. You must know that the total cost of the panacea is at most the price of a bottle of mineral water, but after Lu Chuang's mana injection, the benefits directly doubled by hundreds of thousands of times. In a word, you may make a small profit, but I will never lose money. No need to spend any cost, in exchange for a stable source of customers. No matter how you think about this deal, it is all your own blood. Definitely, he still has to act on the surface. Our Phil Coulson realizes that the cost of the elixir is very low, and he will definitely have to ask for a price reduction. Although he can't lower the price and engage in monopoly marketing, he still has to consider Nick Fury's behavior. If the price is raised rashly, to be more realistic, Nick Fury may feel that some agents are not worth consuming expensive elixir, or that they can be treated with other methods, so he will give up buying a large amount of elixir and buy a small amount instead. This is the same as the medicine in the game. For the same price, you can buy hundreds of bottles of ordinary red medicine at will, but the red medicine that can instantly recover at the same price is not willing to use it even when fighting the boss. Waiting for myself to recover. In the same way, S.H.I.E.L.D. keeps all the panacea in its hands and saves it for critical moments. At that time, S.H.I.E.L.D. will not buy it like it is now, at most buy dozens of bottles and it's over. If S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't use up all the elixir in their hands, how could Lu Chuang continue to sell them the elixir? It's better to give them a little bit of cheap, let them mistakenly think that they have made a profit, and continue to buy panacea without any scruples. Lu Chuang learned this method from a certain big company. Back then, Lu Chuang was considered one of the persecuted people, and he burst into tears when he said it. At this time, Lorna came out from the kitchen with 2 breakfasts. During the period of living in Lu Chuang's house, Lorna basically finished breakfast. This was proposed by Lorna. She is not the kind of person who can accept help from others with peace of mind. In addition to assisting little Peter to complete the work on weekdays, Lorna will also repay Lu Chuang's help and acceptance through some things, such as doing breakfast like this. Definitely, this breakfast is simple bread and milk, even the more difficult Lorna can't make it. Putting the breakfast on the table, seeing Lu Chuang's smile, Lorna asked curiously, "I just heard what you said about the panacea, what is that?" Lu Chuang's voice on the phone was not covered up, and Lorna could hear it clearly without deliberately eavesdropping. "No, this is it." Lu Chuang didn't hide anything either. He pointed to a few boxes of mineral water in the corner. He bought them from a convenience store. He only needed to inject a certain amount of mana into them, and the price would instantly increase by hundreds of thousands of times. Coins are not so profitable. Lorna is a little confused. Is there a brand of panacea for mineral water? "You want to sell mineral water?" Lorna asked in surprise. %GS at Lu Chuang was not happy when he heard it. "What mineral water? This is the panacea, which is the holy water you have seen before." Holy water. Lorna recalled that there was such a thing. She remembered that Lu Chuang used holy water to deal with vampires, and the effect was excellent. After the vampire drank it, the ashes were scattered on the spot. "But, your previous holy water doesn't seem to be like this." Lu Chuang shook his index finger. "You don't understand, right? The competition in the industry is fierce now, and the holy water of the church can't be sold even if there is something new. By the way, I also have hot pot flavored holy water here. Do you want to try it? Try it?" Listening to Lu Chuang's words, Lorna rolled her eyes. After being with Lu Chuang for so many days, she didn't know that Lu Chuang was not a priest at all, and the holy water was probably a lie made up by this guy. Lu Chuang picked up a piece of bread and stuffed it into his mouth, and started to make a new panacea. There are 3 steps to making a panacea. Grab your mineral water, peel off the label, and infuse it with mana. The whole process took less than 5 seconds. Before Lorna took a few sips of milk over there, Lu Chuang had already converted half a box of mineral water into a panacea. Each bottle of panacea contained a certain amount of mana. After Lu Chuang's research, this mana is basically enough to make a whole body spa for a person's soul. Although this point of mana is not a lot, after Lu Chuang converted the whole box of mineral water into a panacea, he still drained all the mana in Lu Chuang's body. Lorna had just finished drinking the milk, and when she looked up, she saw Lu Chuang lying on the sofa with empty eyes, and she was startled. "Are you okay?" "No, it's okay, it's just a little overdrawn." Lu Chuang waved his hand weakly, and now he feels that he is lacking in energy, as if his body is being hollowed out. Seeing that Lu Chuang's condition is not very good, Lorna said worriedly, "Should I send you to the hospital?" "No, I'll take it easy." Lu Chuang didn't expect that the consequences of overdrawing his mana would be so uncomfortable. At first, Lu Chuang thought he had a lot of mana, but now it seems that his mana is still not enough. Now Lu Chuang has to wait for his mana to recover automatically. It will take at least half a day to recover all his mana. In this way, Tony Stark's order will also take several days to complete. It would be nice if there was more mana. Thinking of this, Lu Chuang couldn't help feeling a little regretful. If he had known that his actions in the vampire bar should have been kept secret, so that he could continue to hunt those vampires to increase his mana, it would not be the case now. The vampire bar has become a holy place for online celebrities, and those vampires dare not show up. Lu Chuang thought about it, and decided to find a chance to go and see. Maybe he could catch 1 or 2 vampires who are not afraid of death. After resting for a while, Lu Chuang finally calmed down a lot, but he didn't continue to make the panacea, for fear that his body would be hollowed out again. While eating breakfast, Lu Chuang suddenly received a call from Weasel, saying that the batch of materials he ordered had arrived. It was only then that Lu Chuang remembered that before going to Monaco, he had indeed ordered a batch of materials from Weasel, which were also needed to make super battle suits, but they were not as rare as gold titanium alloys, they were just ordinary materials. In this way, all the materials for making a super battle suit are gathered together. Lu Chuang looked at his house and said distress-edly, "Weasel, put those materials at your place first, and I'll come back to get them in a few days." "Are you kidding me? Do you think my place is a storage factory? Do you know how much it costs to find someone to take care of these materials? I'll give you double the custody fee." "Okay. You can leave it for a few days if you want." After hanging up the phone, Lu Chuang scratched his hair. Now another batch of materials has been delivered, and he doesn't even know where to put them. The garage space has long been covered with 2 pairs of steel armors. In order to make space, Lu Chuang transferred the firearms and ammunition originally stored in the garage to the empty room on the 2nd floor, while the garage materials were moved to the basement by Lu Chuang. Now the basement space is also filled with various materials and collectibles. Lu Chuang rubbed his chin and said to Lorna, "A batch of new materials will be delivered in a few days, and our house is running out of space, so I plan to use the extra space to put materials." Lorna knew what these materials were used for, and said, "But, the house only has the hall and the kitchen and there is still space, so you don't want those materials to be placed here?" "Definitely not. If materials are placed in these places, I will not live comfortably." "Where else in the house can I put materials?" Lorna wondered. Lu Chuang thought for a while, and asked tentatively, "Why don't you free up your room? How about you sleep on the sofa in the future?" Lorna didn't speak, just looked at Lu Chuang expressionlessly. The meaning was very obvious. "Haha. I'm just kidding. How could I let you sleep on the sofa?" Lu Chuang smiled awkwardly, and instantly dispelled the thought in his mind. If Lorna really wanted to sleep on the sofa, Lu Chuang was afraid that Luna would pack up and leave on the spot.
"No way. I can only think of other ways. Moving to a house with a larger space is a solution. Anyway, Lu Chuang is not short of money now, so buying a bigger house is not a problem at all, but the problem is that there seems to be no suitable house to buy nearby, and Lu Chuang cannot move too far. After all, he had to consider the situation of little Peter.
If they move too far away, little Peter will come to Lu Chuang's house again in the future, but it will not be as convenient as a neighbor like now. It is impossible for Aunt May to let little Peter run too far away. Forget it. If it doesn't work, I can only buy the surrounding houses, so that there will be space for materials, which is really troublesome." Lu Chuang seemed to be talking to himself, but his voice was not small. That of Versailles. The tone made Lorna feel a little uncomfortable. Buzz. Just then, a mobile phone vibrated. Lu Chuang thought that his cell phone was ringing again. He looked down and found that it was not his cell phone, and then saw Lorna take out the cell phone from his pocket, and said in amazement, "Why did someone call me?" Due to the pursuit of Sentry Secret Service, Lorna dare not use the previous mobile phone. This new mobile phone was given to Lorna by Lu Chuang himself. In Lu Chuang's words, sometimes he is not at home, and if there is any problem at home, Lorna can still use the mobile phone to contact himself. Ben wants to refuse. Lorna had no choice but to accept it. Definitely, usually Lorna would only contact Lu Chuang with this mobile phone, and even her only relative, aunt, did not try to contact him. Although Lorna has a lot to say to her aunt, on the one hand, she is worried that the Sentry Secret Service will monitor her aunt's mobile phone, thereby revealing her location. On the other hand, she does not want her affairs to affect her aunt's life. Therefore, Lorna was very puzzled why a strange call came from her mobile phone that she hadn't used a few times. Lu Chuang also understood this point, and said indifferently, "Listen and see, it might be a scam call." Hearing Lu Chuang's words, Lorna nodded and picked up the phone, but she was very smart and didn't take the initiative to speak, but waited for the other party to speak. However, a few seconds later, Lu Chuang saw that Lorna's face suddenly became extremely ferocious, and dazzling green light spots erupted from both hands. "Who are you?" "Buzz." Inside the house, the lights flickered wildly, and the surrounding metal objects began to tremble violently. Seeing that the green light of Lorna's hands became more and more dazzling, almost catching up with the light bulb, Lu Chuang stood up and patted Lorna's shoulder. "Calm down. Don't tear down the house." Lu Chuang's words carried a hint of a priest's charm, and his gentle and calm tone made Lorna calm down a little. Realizing that her emotions were a little out of control, Lorna took a deep breath. The green light on her hands dissipated immediately, and looked at Lu Chuang with apology in her eyes, and then said to the phone in a cold tone, "Tell me, what's wrong with my aunt?" The reason why Lorna lost control suddenly was because she heard something said on the other side. "Lorna Dan, your aunt is in trouble." The person Lorna cares about most is her aunt, and she exploded on the spot when she heard this sentence. Facing Lorna's questioning, a steady male voice came from the other end of the phone. "I'm John, from the Mutant Underground Organization. We met before, you should still remember." Mutant Underground Organization. Lu Chuang didn't bother Lorna, and stood silently by the side, but actually eavesdropped on their conversation with ears pricked up. Lu Chuang, who has a super high school level thief, has also been strengthened in terms of hearing. As long as he listens carefully, he can still hear it. The voice on the other end of the phone. Overhearing John's words, Lu Chuang suddenly realized. Although he has never heard of this mutant underground organization, he can tell the nature of this organization from the name. It is nothing more than a secret organization formed by a group of mutants. Mutants have various abilities. It is not surprising that they can find Lorna's phone number. Matter. As for your aunt, we found out she was taken by Sentry Secret Service. Before John finished speaking, Lorna burst into anger. She is innocent. Why did the Sentry Secret Service take her away? John paused, and said, according to the information we obtained, just a few days ago, the Sentry Secret Service took away your aunt on the grounds of investigation. This is obviously my business. My aunt doesn't know anything. Why did those bastards take her away? Lorna's eyes were full of anger. Her hands were faintly flashing with green light, and she could hardly restrain her emotions. Give it to me. Let me tell him. Lu Chuang really can't stand it anymore. Now Lorna's condition is very bad, and she may lose control at any time. Lu Chuang was not worried that the other party could hurt him, but he was mainly afraid that Lorna's ability would suddenly lose control and directly squeeze Curry's two steel armors into small flats. When the time comes, Lu Chuang will have nowhere to cry. Regardless of Lorna's resistance, Lu Chuang snatched the phone and said, John, right, I can't explain it on the phone. How about we make an appointment to talk face to face? Hearing an unfamiliar voice, John asked vigilantly, who are you? I'm Lorna's landlord, and I take care of all her food and drinks. If Lorna was not in the mood now, she would definitely refute Lu Chuang's ambiguous words. No matter how you put it, it was as if she was being taken care of by someone. Obviously she was working without pay, and these were all her labor income. John over there was silent for a long time, and finally said, yes, but I need to decide the agreed time and place, and you can't bring other people over. No problem. Then John said the time and place. Lu Chuang wrote it down and hung up the phone. Wait. I still have questions to ask him. Lorna was anxious to grab the phone. Lu Chuang let Lorna snatch the phone back, and said, don't worry, your aunt will be fine. If you have any questions, we can ask them face to face later. They can find this phone. Maybe the Sentry Secret Service can also monitor this phone. Hearing this, Lorna hesitated for a while, but gave up the idea of calling back. Let's go. We go to meet that mutant underground organization together. No. How did you know this name? Did you overhear just now? Lorna suddenly realized, otherwise why would Lu Chuang know so much about her conversation with John? How is it possible? I've never been interested in other people's gossip, Lu Chuang said righteously. You just listened. The place John agreed on was in an abandoned building. In the evening, Lu Chuang and Lorna arrived at the agreed place by car. Because her hair color was too conspicuous, before going out, Lorna deliberately dyed her dark green hair black with a disposable hair dye. Not to mention, Lorna who changed her hair color is indeed a bit different, and her overall temperament looks much quieter. If you replace the pile of metal bracelets with books, it will be a proper character set for a schoolmaster girl. Lu Chuang didn't make a disguise, and the two walked into the abandoned building just like that. The interior of the abandoned building was empty, and there was no sign of John. Lorna looked around, frowned and said, where is he? He is not lying to us, is he? Lu Chuang raised the corners of his mouth and showed a veteran smile. You don't need to guess. The other party must be hiding somewhere to observe us, to see if we have an ambush or other conspiracy. This is a normal operation, just get used to it. Then we'll just wait here. It's okay, we just didn't have dinner, so let's eat something during this time. Lu Chuang was holding a bag in his hand, which he bought at a passing restaurant, and he took out a meal with gravy from it, calmly eat up. Lorna was stunned. It turned out that Lu Chuang bought these for this. But, what time is this? How can she still be in the mood to pay attention to food? Aren't you going to eat? Lu Chuang asked curiously. Lorna wanted to refuse, but smelling the delicious rice, she couldn't help swallowing, took out another gravy rice from the bag and ate it. Anyway, John didn't know when he would arrive, so he couldn't wait hungry all the time. John. In fact, John has already arrived. As Lu Chuang expected, John is hiding somewhere and observing the two of them. He has a hearing that surpasses ordinary people and can easily hear the movement from a long distance, so he is not afraid of being caught at this distance. The two found out. It's not that John doesn't trust Lu Chuang and Lorna, it's just that he has a more cautious and stable personality. Facing people he doesn't know very well, especially Lu Chuang, who appeared unexpectedly, John keeps a vigilant heart. It's just that they didn't expect Lu Chuang to be so experienced and well prepared that he would bring all the dinner here. Listening to the two of them eating rice with gravy, John, who also didn't have dinner, couldn't help but feel hungry. If I had known earlier, he would have brought his own dinner.